Hey guys, and how are we going today? And today's topic is going to be a really, really important one for a lot of you ladies, especially you strong, successful, driven ladies who have struggled in some of your relationships where the men have, not performed at the standard that you've been looking for. Why does your man step down when you step up?
Look, it's a big question, and I have experienced this in my own relationship. So it's really interesting, and it's a very gradual process. So until you start thinking about it, you might not have even recognized the patterns. But if you've gone through a divorce or a separation or a relationship loss, very often we start to look back on our relationships and we start to see things that we may not have recognized while we were in the relationship. So, one of the first things we need to do is just to become conscious and have a look at it and not be afraid. First thing I want to tell you is that very often we subconsciously take over and start calling all the shots and ruling the roost, and it's not intentional, because very often it happens because we felt we had to. We didn't have a choice. We were the responsible one. We were the ones who were looking after the kids, or we had to pay bills. So very often it's just our need for certainty, our need for safety that drives our behaviors, and we end up doing more. And as a consequence, the more we do, the less our partner does. And then that leads to frustration. So very often it's our subconscious need to be in control that pushes our partners away. And I'm not saying it's not your fault, because these will be subconscious behaviours. So we can only look at them and learn from them now, so we don't recreate them in our next relationship.
Are you a really strong woman? Like, you see yourself as a strong woman, you see yourself as successful, you've done a lot in your life, and you like taking charge of your family, your life, and making things happen. Put your hand up and say, yep, guys, that was me, and that's what happened, and that may have been a contributing factor to the breakdown of your relationship. Obviously, it's not the only thing, ladies, but it's really good to look at yourself and realize where you may have gone wrong, not to blame or shame yourself, but to be able to realize that, hey, there's something for me to work on, so that in my next relationship, I can figure out how to do it better, so that instead of pulling apart, we pull together during conflict and challenging situations. When someone steps up, male or female, in a relationship, the other person naturally steps down, because both parties have a limited energy source to be able to do all the different actions in their life. And they often, like in this situation with guys, is when the woman starts taking over control and responsibility around the family life, around the organizing, the managing, the direction, and that sort of thing. A lot of that stuff is not as fun from a guy's perspective. It's boring, it's challenging, and that sort of thing. And so if they don't love doing it, they want to be the one in control, they will naturally step down. But what happens then is that's when it starts to build the resentment and the frustration between the parties, because one person thinks they're doing everything, and the other person, what usually happens is they'll step down in one area, but in their mind, they'll step up in another. But in the way that they step up, it may not be stepping up in the way that you want them to.
My ex-husband, he was a really hard worker, and so he used to just go and work, and so I felt really lonely. I hated asking for his wages every month, and I needed to have that stability in my life. I decided I'd start a business, and that was what started to drive me to get the security that I needed to know that my kids were going to be good and give me some significance, because I felt that my husband wasn't seeing me because he was always working. So I got really good at that. And this is what a lot of you ladies are. You're great at your career. You're smart, you're switched on, and you do a really good job. So often you get a really good skill set. So you bring that back home with you, and it's just easy for you to organize. It's easy for you to do all the planning. And what starts out as you being super capable often can become the thing that costs you, and you find that you start doing everything. And this is exactly what happened to me. I just started making decisions, and the more decisions I made, the more I got on a roll, the more, my husband left it to me because he knew that I was doing a great job. We still were always a team. We had each other's back, but I often then started to feel like I was the one who was doing everything. And that was good while it was good. But when one party feels like they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're not being acknowledged, or they're not being appreciated, very often, instead of coming together as a couple, they start to pull apart. Eventually, our relationship started to break down when my husband decided that he wasn't having his needs met. And so then he started to look for other ways to, fill his void, fill his needs. And of course, at this stage, I was busy. I was, running a big company, had lots to do, had family, had kids, had, everything, trying to keep it all together. And, instead of coming together under pressure, we over time started to pull apart and just be focused on meeting our own needs instead of meeting our needs of our partner and as a couple. So it's a downward spiral from when you start to not work together. So you've got to always have each other's backs. It's very unfortunate, but it's subconscious. We're not aware of it until it's too late often. But looking back and being able to process it, you can be aware of what you don't want to happen next time.